Welcome into Dating at Her Age. I'm Debbie, and she's
Caitlyn.
I'm 57 still until next year, 2025, and you are almost.
I am 29 until next year, early next year.
And you'll be 30.
Yes.
We love doing this podcast, Dating at Her Age, because this is just, there's so much content to talk about dating, but particularly the way we do it is from two totally different generational perspectives. I'm almost 30 years older than you are, Caitlyn, and I was alive long before social media came on the scene. And when I was dating in the 1980s, we didn't even know social media was a thing. You grew up in an era of social media.
Well, I kind of grew up in an era, so I grew up without it. And then once I was a teenager in high school, that's when it started to surface. So I kind of got both. And I'm a little envious of how you came up, because I think social media has caused a lot of problems
in dating.
With dating. Yeah, it just too many options because of social media, but too much pressure because of social media, too much conflict because of social media, but it can have its benefits as well.
Too many options in that people will dump somebody that might be a good option for them because the grass is always greener when they find the next Facebook profile or Instagram profile.
Yeah, there's just a lot of people to look at and be curious about. So
before we get into our pop quiz about social media and dating, I've got 5 questions I laid out. I'm going to bounce all 5 questions off of you, and then you'll give me your response to each one, how you feel about each one, every prompt, Caitlyn, and then I'll come in and give you my 2 cents as well about how. And I wonder if through our discussion, maybe we don't come up with answers to every single thing dealing with social media and dating. But what we do is we start to think about it. Like, how do we feel about this?
Yeah.
When I want to just go back to the 1980s, when Reagan was president, when we had 3 channels plus Sesame Street. We had like the 3 networks plus PBS. We got our news largely like from printed newspapers, which are these days even hard to come by, and the nightly news and any sort of social media, if you will, gossip, which we didn't have social media back then, of course, was basically things that you learned about each other through the rumor mill at school. Mm-hmm. That was it. Social media has changed so much of that. Just like who we connect with, how we connect, what we can find out about people. People that we're dating, people we might want to date. We can find out also from social media, I think about this, like what people's behaviors are on social media, the content they post, the comments they make, who they follow. And before we get into our pop quiz, what have you seen about social media that concerns you the most when you're in the dating game?
I think that people share things a little too quickly, maybe. And then they are on to the next very shortly. So maybe that's a personal choice, but it allows for people to judge others based off of relationships with that.
Are you saying that if I'm dating somebody new, maybe I am too willing to put that information out there by tagging them in a post or putting a photo of us together online?
Yeah. And there's a part of me, and this is maybe why I feel that way, is I think that when more people get involved early on, it causes more problems. So when you're putting things out early on, it can blow it up.
To your family and friends.
Yeah, to social media, to the world. So I've seen a lot of things kind of blow up because of social media as well. Like I've seen people commenting and just people getting in your business that don't need to be in your business, especially when it's early on. But that's what social media is. It's just a platform for people to chime in about things.
So there's 2 things that I see in terms of social media. And one is that I'm not proud of how I've used social media in the past. I'll get into that in just a second. But the one thing is comparison.
Yeah.
Right. I think social media has been a real Debbie Downer for me at times as I get online and I see people, and I want them to be in wonderful relationships. Of course I do. But then it reflects on me not being able to find somebody who will be my forever companion. And the second thing is there's a tendency to launch the investigative friends unit, using 2 or 3 social media apps to figure out all the things about somebody, when judging them through social media might not give us a real clear picture of who they really are. And I tend to do this especially with when I'm starting to date a man If they are on social media, that's a whole nother discussion for a few minutes from now, because a lot of men in their 50s I date are not on social media, which doesn't give me a really great inroad to figure out who they are and who they like on if they don't have social media. But what I'm looking for is like who they follow and the different types of accounts they follow. And sometimes I have called up a guy or texted him and said, I'm not interested in a first date after I look at who they follow on some of the major social media platforms, because I particularly a man who follows a lot of women who clearly are not co-workers.
Mm-hmm.
These are women on, Instagram sites and other things that I just would think, I'm not interested in somebody who is interested in that. I once found a guy who had gone on a date with, or 2 dates with, had liked a ton of different posts that I thought just are kind of inappropriate posts. Do I want to be associated with that? So I'm not proud of it in that I've rushed to judgment based on just seeing who they like or what they say on social media.
And I almost see that as a pro. Like, it's a way to find things out about people on if they're a right fit and if they're doing kind of shady things, because social media can ruin relationships, but it's because of how people are acting on it. Because if it's so interesting to me how a Facebook like or an Instagram like is like detrimental to a relationship sometimes. Sometimes I feel like that's like a little bit exaggerated, but if I was in that situation and I was with somebody who was just liking a lot of different women's pictures and engaging with them, I think I would have a problem with that. So it is very interesting how the world has become with dating.
Quick story before this 5-question pop quiz. I was dating somebody. We'd been going out for, a few months. And this is a cautionary tale, men and women. And you think the person that you're commenting their post, their account is forever private because they have a private account. But what you don't realize is that the person you're dating, because of the algorithm, right? You've connected with them on social media. The algorithm will feed those people into their feed and ask, do you want to follow them? And so even though they have a private account, you might be like, yeah, I'll follow them, right? They're followed by the guy or the gal I'm dating and several other people I know. Sure, I'll follow them. And then they accept you as a follower. And this actually happened to me where a woman accepted me as a follower. And I go into her profile and I start looking at like, how do we know each other? How are we connected? And I realized the man I was dating had been making comments on some of her posts, and they weren't comments that made me happy.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. And this was happening while we were dating. I just felt like that was inappropriate for somebody that I was dating to be doing if we're in a relationship. And I felt like we were in a relationship. I mean, we were in a relationship that, and I actually called him up and said, you just can't do that. I mean, if that's what you think and that's how you feel, it's out there now. I am also now following her, and she does seem like a very wonderful, awesome person. I mean, I have no issues following. Of course, you want to follow somebody. Maybe you know her from a different, from where you used to work or whatever. I don't have any problem. It was the comments.
Yeah.
And the comments that were happening after we had committed to each other. So if you think that, you're safe from your current lover or spouse or significant other finding out because the person's account is private, it's quite possible that social media platform will feed that person to your significant other as a possible option to follow. And that's that. So I did not break it off with this guy, but what I ended up feeling is insecure, concerned, also just perplexed.
Mm-hmm.
We're both in our 50s. Why in the world would you be making comments like that on another woman's page when you were dating me? So it's just a cautionary tale. We eventually did break up, but not for that reason. Of, think about what you're posting, and also as you're posting it, who you might be hurting.
Yeah. And it's just interesting because how is making a comment online any different than saying something like that to a person to their face. Maybe it is different to people, but I see a lot of problems with that because it would make me, I would feel the same way.
Thanks for validating that, because for a long time I wasn't sure I made the right decision on that. I just know how I felt in the moment. And I think social media can cause problems in a relationship. But the best part of that story is that I had the conversation with him, right? I didn't let it marinate for weeks. I confronted it right away. Hopefully, I was calm and classy about it because that's how I like to stay when things like that pop up. But it taught me a lot of lessons about dating and social media. And I've now, in the last couple of years, I've reversed how I feel about social media and posting on social media in a really big way. And I'll tell you about that in just a moment. For now, when we come back, let's do our social media pop quiz, the 5-question pop quiz next.
Welcome back to Dating at Her Age. Today we are tackling the topic of social media and how it impacts dating.
So we have put together a 5-question pop quiz, and it's not a pass or fail. It's just, how do you feel about this? And a moment for us to reflect on how we feel about social media. Social media is a big deal. It's, you get Facebook, Instagram. Now you've got TikTok, which is probably less of a platform to post about relationships. There is some of that in terms of who you're dating specifically, more Facebook and Instagram. But it's in our faces. It's in the palm of our hands on our phones all day long. So Caitlyn and I have put together a 5-question pop quiz on social media and dating. And the goal here isn't to get answers right or wrong. It's just to prompt us into thinking about what we feel and how we use social media in our dating life. And then analyzing it on our own and asking ourselves, is this how we want social media to play out in our lives? So, Caitlyn, you go first with the first question on our quiz.
Okay. When should they post about you?
So when somebody you're dating, when should they post about you? Ooh, I was dating somebody and I was a little bit fuzzy on this question. And I think one thing I did do right, although I don't do everything right, one thing I did do right is I asked him, and we had that conversation. Because social media in my life, in my world, in our world, working in the news industry, is probably a much bigger deal in a lot of ways than it is for somebody who doesn't work in our industry. We post to social media a lot for a lot of different reasons.
And you have to think hard about what you're posting.
You have to think about what you're posting. Yeah. And I posted before I knew that our relationship was going to go to the next level. So that also gave me some pause. Like, do I want to be, as you said earlier, putting it all out there for everybody on social media to see, not only my family and friends, but everybody else, that I am it looks like I'm in a relationship. But it was kind of at that point, I wasn't quite sure what the relationship would end up being. So I had that conversation with him. It was a couple of months. It was probably about 3 months into our dating, and that felt about right. Then, this was a few years ago. I'll tell you in a moment how I feel about it now, but you go now.
Well, I was going to say, does the 3-month rule apply to this question? Because that's kind of where my mind was going. I feel like when you're on the verge of being in a committed relationship or already in the committed relationship, that's when I would think it would be okay. Maybe that's too harsh because you can be a friend with someone that you may post about, but I just don't want to be posted about and then there's questions like, where'd she go? Where'd this person go?
Are you worried about being embarrassed?
A little bit.
That the relationship doesn't work out?
It's part of me just going back to that. When too many people get involved early on, it starts to ruin your judgment because other people will start giving their opinions.
Bingo. I do. That's where I stand now. Is I am starting to enjoy now in my late 50s having like a wall of silence around me. And what I mean by that is I'm not letting everybody into my life. Being mysterious is becoming okay in my mind. Not that I think people are sitting around wondering, like, what's she up to? Is she dating? No, I don't think that. But I'm also not putting myself out there. I'm making myself more of a mystery. So if I started dating somebody again, and it was a serious relationship. I wanted to post. I can't even remember. This is the last time I posted about a guy on social media. I would wait much, much longer than 3 months. I don't feel the need to let the world know that I'm in a relationship or I'm dating anybody, because I know and he knows and we know things are going well, and not having it out there for people to judge or call me up about or text me about is a good thing.
And I think when you're secure in your relationships, like you just said, you will want to post less. I've actually seen, I don't know if this is necessarily true, but the people who are very loud about their relationships end up breaking up faster. This is not a stat. I'm just saying I've seen people talk. Yeah, this is something that I've seen people talk about, other than the people who are very happy and secure in their relationships and not worried about it at all. You don't really hear much about them. And I like that.
So the next question that we wrote down is, do you feel insecure when they don't post about you?
I think no, if it's dating phase. I don't want you to. Maybe like a story. If there's a story that, we go to an event or something and I happen to be in the picture, sure.
So an Instagram story that disappears after 24 hours.
Yeah, and if it's like a little bit into dating, it's not like first date. No, I don't want to totally do that. But I think that you can still like take a picture together and hold on to it. It doesn't have to be shared with the world. I think if I was in a committed relationship or married with someone and they never really even acknowledged me, maybe, but it depends on the person and how into social media they are. Are they posting a bunch of pictures of other people or other things that they're doing, just not
you? So you're taking inventory.
Yeah, because, if they're not big on social media, then I'm not going to judge.
But if they only post about their female coworker...
that's a little weird. That'd be a flag. But yeah.
Well, let's say they post all the time about hanging out with their brother or a fishing trip or going bowling with their mom and dad, but they never acknowledge you.
Yeah, I don't know how much I would think about it, but if it was like I was just invisible in their life on social media, then maybe I would have a conversation. But it's not all that important to me.
Well, look, here's my rule. Once I post about whoever, he better be posting about me.
Yeah, mutual effort.
Yes. No, none of this, how often does he use or keeping inventory. Once I post, we're in this together, we're a partnership. And so we're posting. Now, he might not post as much as I do on social media. That's fine. But once that first photo goes live and it's official, and I've let, my followers and my family and friends know, they better be able to click on the tag that the name I've tagged in that photo, click over to his Facebook page or Instagram page or whatever, and see that same photo of me and him standing together. That's it. And then after that, it's fine. If he doesn't post every day or 3 times a month or whatever, I'm not going to keep track of that. However, I would say if there's a pattern over the course of the next several months where all I am seeing is photos of him on social media holding that little fish that he caught, and none of the me catching that huge fish,
especially if you're with him. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
I do feel like when you post somebody, it is like a launch of a relationship, and that's kind of why I think I don't want it. It's something not to do.
It's a partnership
early on. Like you're launching it to the world on social media, and so I think yes, but it depends on your mutual understanding of the situation.
It sounds like you're more of like it's based on the context of the situation.
Yeah.
And mine is more based on immediate. When I hit post, I better see we are simultaneously hitting the post.
He can also at least just comment on your picture or whatever.
No.
To acknowledge that, hey, this was a great time.
No, that's your opinion, not mine. He should be commenting.
Okay,
and
post
also,
away.
Look, I think if you're going to make that effort to announce to your family, friends, and followers that you're in a relationship with somebody and they mean that much to you, that if they do have social media and they use it and they know how to use it, it's just a way to reinforce that and say, she means as much to me as I mean to her.
Yeah, I agree.
We're in it together. And then don't you post something on Facebook like, in a relationship on this date in 2024, 2025.
The pressure of that is scary, but yeah, and that's hard launching a relationship. They have to accept the relationship request. So
I always, like, my heart flutters when I see my friends post that they're in a relationship, especially if I know they've been really working hard toward it. It makes me happy that they become Facebook or Instagram official. I think it's super cute, but it doesn't have to be your whole life. And there doesn't have to be scorekeeping and a competition going on. Maybe in my case, there would be a little bit, but once we post simultaneously, then I'm good. But if they're not going to post me, then I'm going to say, okay, maybe it's just time to hold off for a second. So that's my rule. The next question is, what do you think when you see a friend post about their relationship? What's the first thought that comes to mind when you see a friend post about their relationship? Because I do think maybe some of our friends think the same thing of us when we post about a relationship. So what's yours, Caitlyn?
Well, if it's a happy post, I'm usually thinking, good for them. But I don't always see happy posts.
You are such a sweet, kind-hearted person. You really, really are.
Or is it like I don't know.
No. So my initial reaction is, it'll never work out. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's okay to be real.
I'm so negative about dating that what I'm doing is I'm just projecting my dating scenarios, my dating chaos onto my friends. And I feel badly about that. I always try to, love their post or leave a sweet message about it. But I look at it, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it'll work out. What I'm doing there is I have to stop myself and say, you need to be happy for them. They have long wanted a relationship like this. This is a great guy. It's a great gal. They're, obviously very happy in this moment. So just be happy for them instead of projecting, again, my dating chaos onto them, which is true. I mean, my dating relationships have not worked out. How do we know this? Well, because I'm not dating anybody. And I'm not posting about anybody on Facebook. So maybe there's a tinge of what the experts would call jealousy.
Perspective. Okay, I could see that. I also do think you don't know how it's going to work out. So I don't think that is invalid to think that. But maybe you do have a negative thought process to it. I think, and I will just admit that when I've had friends or just anybody that I know post they're in a new relationship, but this is the type of person that I was kind of referring to when they've kind of been in a lot of relationships, that's when I have those types of thoughts. And it's like, oh, there's another one. See how long this one lasts. I'm being completely honest here. And that's me judging somebody.
Yeah.
But I think that we're all guilty of that. But that's literally my example of getting people involved. They're going to just have their opinions about you. It's better off to just leave it alone.
Just leave it alone.
Just don't show anybody. Just do your thing.
Well, it's just kind of funny to laugh about it. But I also have to say, good for them for keeping on.
For trying. Yeah.
For trying. And when one relationship doesn't work, when one door closes, by golly, they open another one.
Yeah.
Where I'm just sitting at home on the weekends hoping that the Kansas City Chiefs are playing, what I mean?
Hoping that the soulmate knocks on the front door.
Hoping that somebody shows up.
They're much braver than I am for that.
Right.
So,
So good for them for keeping on the dating scene. We could probably learn a lot. Like, how do you keep your stamina up when Caitlyn and I over here are suffering from first date fatigue?
I give up quickly. Not too quickly, but I get defeated. So
well, I go in knowing it's not going to work out.
Well, that's your problem.
It is a problem.
It's also probably I don't think I have that mindset, but I also get nervous, but then I just worry about, it just seems overwhelming to me. So I get defeated easily. If it proves itself to be hard, I get a little defeated.
It's one of the things I'll be working on in 2025, friends. I will be working on having a positive outlook and attitude going into dating once I make the decision to get back on dating apps. That's a whole nother goal of mine in 2025. Okay, our last question. Oh, no, it's not our last question. Now we're at this question. Do you delete their photos after a breakup? Do you delete their photos after a breakup?
So I've never been in this situation because I've really only experienced situationships where that's a friend, never totally a relationship. And these people are still kind of in my lives today. So I don't know the answer to this one because I always have thought that it was weird to me when people did that because it's just erasing memories. They're in the past, but I also can understand if they're completely out of your life, there's no reason for them to still be on your profile.
I don't block them on my cell phone. I don't delete their cell phone number. However, yes, I do delete their photos on social media. Now, it may take me some time. I'm not, 12 hours out from the breakup, scrolling social media and deleting all evidence. And in some cases, I've kind of wrestled back and forth with my own brain, like, should I don't know, because it feels like that I'm seeking retribution. I was like, I'll show you, delete. But what it does is, for me, is it just reminds me that the relationship is over. They're out of my life. It's been more than a day. Usually, I would say my experience at this age is when you do break it off with somebody, it's not like a junior high or a high school relationship where they're back in they're gone from your life on Friday and then you're back together on Monday. Yeah. That's once it's done, it's done. I've made the decision, or they've, made the decision to move on. You don't come crawling back to each other the next week. So I have no issues whatsoever with deleting. It's just my personal viewpoint. And also, I don't want Facebook to remind me 5 years from now that I once dated a guy for 5 days. So,
well, that's why you don't post them after 5 days.
Or 5 months. Yeah. I'm good. I've moved on. Past is the past. It was great while it lasted. But that's kind of to me, the sort of the downside and the upside to social media. Mm-hmm. When it's your kids popping up in your memories from when they were 4 years old, it's awesome. It's like, oh, they were so cute. When it's an ex-boyfriend from 4 years earlier, like, oh, I'm done. We haven't talked for years. So I do go back and delete for those reasons. Plus, they're just not in my life anymore. And maybe they've moved on to somebody else too by then, I mean, they don't, and that woman is searching for them on social media and they see and let's just erase it. We have memories. When we didn't have social media back in the day, up until like the early 2000s, we didn't have any of this anyway. So to me, it's like, I'm just returning back to my roots in the 1980s and 90s. We just didn't have this. If we wanted to look up a photo of somebody, we had to go to a photo album and look up it was stuck to the photo album and it's yellowed and all that. Yeah. You're past that generation.
I think that I do find out if I have a suspicion that someone's broken up with someone, I could be a nosy Nelly and I go see if they've deleted any pictures of them or archived them. And it's usually the way to figure it out. And sometimes they pop right back up because they went through a little period of being separated. But it's how you investigate relationships. I've done it plenty of times. But it's just people are nosy and they want to know. But I understand all of that, especially if you are dating somebody else. You don't need to have all of your relationships just out there.
Okay, so Caitlyn's going to take on the last question, the 5th question of our pop quiz.
Okay, this last question is, what if they don't have social media? What do you think about that?
Oh, I could talk for days about this. I have dated men in their 50s who do not have social media that I know of. Do they have a Finstagram? Is that like a friend's Instagram? You're laughing at me like, okay, 57-year-old. That's not what it's called these days. What do the kids call it these days? Is it a Finsta?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's like that's a sort of like a sidebar account. That's not. It's kind of it masks their true identity, or maybe a fake Facebook page. Or now they may want to be keeping tabs on, what people on social media are doing. But it's been interesting for me to date men who don't have social media. And to some extent, I want to give them a high five.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty bold. As long as they're not masquerading, as another name on that social media platform and just pretending they don't have social media, I think it's bold. I don't mind that they don't have social media. It does make it really hard to launch the Friends Investigative Unit, though, when they don't have social media. And I've heard from women over social media who've messaged me to ask questions. We did that episode on DIY background checks for dating. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it. DIY backgrounds for dating, where I compile a list of different free, low-cost public websites that I use, and Caitlyn is now using to research, who we're meeting on dating apps. Really important information for safety and staying safe on dating apps and in other areas of our lives. It's hard to do that. And I've had women reach out to me with this question, like, this guy I'm dating, just met him, he's not on social media, I don't know where to find him. Do you think that's a red flag? It could be. It could actually be a red flag. There's a lot of reasons outside of, like, they just not interested in social media for people not to be on social media. And this is just through my experience as a former investigative news reporter. It could be because they're, being chased down by creditors, and creditors will use social media sites to try to track somebody down. So they want to stay low so they're not easily found. It could also mean absolutely nothing at all. It's just that they're not interested in social media. It could be a way to hide other information. Maybe they had information or stuff on their page that they want to suddenly delete for some reason, that you're just not going to be able to find out. So yeah, I think it can be a red flag, but the men I've dated and I've got to know who don't have social media seem as though they fit. There is such a thing as the profile of a guy who's just not that interested in being on social media. They don't care about the gossip or the dirt, or they care about what their family members are doing, but they actually do something novel. They call them on the phone,
right?
And they send them a text message and ask them what they're doing. So I found guys that I've dated without social media are doing it for pretty altruistic reasons. And I want to give them a high five. I think that's really commendable. And maybe one day in my life, I'll get to the point where social media won't be such a central focus.
Yeah, and my mind automatically kind of goes to the red flag that you explained. But as you said, it's not the main reason. And I do admire people who are not on social media and needing to flaunt their life all the time. I do respect that. I like the mystery part of it. So.
I also once dated a man who did not love social media. Like, it just wasn't his thing. And he told me something. I think we can all take a lesson from this. He said one of the women he was dating spent so much time on social media when they were together that he felt as though it had interfered with their relationship. And that was an aha moment for me. Like, so I think you have to look at that and say, is social media getting in the way of bonding with this person that is sitting in front of me at dinner, or we're watching a show together, or we're going to a movie theater, and I'm constantly checking my social media? Yeah, I think you have to think of that. And I thought that was a wake-up call for me. So when I would see him, and then he's actually the one who started me on this, Caitlyn, of leaving my phone in my purse, not even putting it on the table, like putting it on the table upside down. Come on. All right. You can leave in your purse. You can leave in your back pocket. I started to do that. And now, in honor of him, even though it was another broken relationship, what I do quite often is I will leave my phone at home in another room.
Scary.
I know.
I like the phone away.
But it feels like freedom too.
Yeah, no. And I was going to say, I think that when you're on a date with someone or just spending time with anyone, there should be like a phone down rule if you're like at dinner or something, because we all naturally just look at our phones, and it's just so normalized to just be sucked into what everyone else is doing. Like there's a life happening right in front of you. Pay attention to that. So it's just a way to be more present. So I admire that. I like that.
When we come back, we've got a question from one of our listeners. It came to us via our email, our Dating at Her Age email. We're going to give you that email address and the phone number to leave us a message on as well. And we might play that message back and your questions back here on the podcast. But straight ahead, a man is reaching out for advice on how to get into the dating game. And he's leaning on us for advice, Caitlyn. I think I have some good tips. We'll see what you think of my tips next.
Data
Our Dater Hater email comes from a man who has been divorced for a number of years. Sounds like 17 years he's been divorced. He's in his mid-40s, has a child, a son who's raised. He's an adult now, and he doesn't have any social media. We've been talking about that. That is not necessarily a downer, right? We've talked about that could be really awesome in the minds of a lot of women. So don't feel like you have to run out and jump on social media just yet. He's tried Tinder, and he felt like it was a disaster. He said he tried it for a week or two a few years ago, but it was a disaster for him. I actually have a Tinder story as well that I can share, and I think a lot of people do have success on Tinder. Don't get me wrong. I know they do. And I know people who have met their spouses on Tinder. But being an older adult trying Tinder for the first time, I've got a story with that as well. So what he wants to know is how to get back into the dating game. How does someone like me, who's been out of the game for a while, meet people? He said it was hard back in the day. Me and my friends spent time together, but now everyone is married and he's not sure how things work. He doesn't go out to like bars or nightclubs, and he says he lives a Groundhog Day life. He goes to work, the gym, he comes home, rinse, repeat. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the email and so much information. And I do have some thoughts on how to get back into the dating game, because this was hard for me too. It was in the 80s when I was dating the first time, and in the 90s, and then I met my husband in 94. We started dating in 95. We started dating in 94, and we were married in 95. And we were married for 21 years. So we left our marriage and entered into this whole new world. And I was overwhelmed by the apps, and I stayed off them for some time. So, Caitlyn, let's start with you in terms of how does he start getting back out there? Because I do think you have some great tips on how to meet people in the wild.
I do think that it is a lot about how you look at being out in public and not being closed off. First off, you said you don't go to nightclubs. Great. If you don't want to be at those places, don't go to them, because you're most likely not going to meet your person at those places. If you're going to go out and you want to meet people in the wild, quote unquote, go sit at whatever makes you feel like yourself, like you feel safe, happy. For me, I like to eat brunch. I like to go to bookstores. I like to get coffee and sit there. Anything that is good energy, I feel like is where it will attract people that are aligned with me in that. So just going to places that you really feel comfortable is number one, and being open in those places and not being closed off with headphones on, looking at your phone, making eye contact with people.
So he does say he works out at the gym. He goes to a gym. It sounds like he goes to a gym. He doesn't work out at a home gym. If you're comfortable at a gym, don't know if you do this or not, but stop going to the gym with AirPods in, or these big headsets that you and I are wearing now to record this. We've all seen them at the gym, and they are amazing, and I'm sure they cancel all noise for miles. But you're also sending a signal to somebody that you want to have absolutely nothing to do with any conversation at the gym. If you like to work out, I love working out. I spend a lot of time at the gym. Caitlyn, you spend a lot of time at the gym. I do show up with AirPods in, and I usually don't remove them unless they happen to bounce out of my ear by accident. This is not sending a signal of, I'm open to meeting somebody who shares my same exercise vibe. It's very closed off. So I think the little things that we can do are be receptive to opening up conversations, but you can't open up a conversation if you're listening to AC/DC on volume 10.
Yeah. The gym one is a little bit of a hard one for me, but yes, I agree with everything you just said. But for me, when I go to the gym, and I think a lot of people are like this, it is the time where they're like headphones on, world out, and they're not necessarily wanting to meet somebody. Maybe that's just my perspective. Maybe there's a whole bunch of people who are going there to socialize. So being open and, I do talk to people at the gym if we're like, switching machines or something. That's the only interactions I really have. But I think even if your gym offers classes, going to something regularly, and if you connect with someone there, that's a little bit more of a community as well. Not everybody is closed off at the gym. I just think when I go there, I'm at the end of a day, and I'm usually
but you might be sending a signal that you're not open to conversation. Yeah. And speaking of classes, I think that is a great tip. If you're looking for somebody who, again, like matches your vibe, you love to exercise, and you're at the gym, take a class. Like I go to Zumba. I go to Zumba at a gym, and I go to several different locations. I don't just camp at one location. I don't go to Zumba to meet my forever love, but what could happen at Zumba, because by the way, guys, there are a lot of females, not all females, some men, in Zumba classes. Mm-hmm. So it opens your mind to different forms of exercise. I always feel so invigorated when I go to a Zumba class. And I just started this like a year ago. I used to do like high intensity workouts, and I was like, I can't do another burpee if they begged me to do another burpee. So I was doing that twice a day or once a day, but I was kind of meeting the same people, and they were awesome people. I love them. I miss my gym friends. But I was finding, I was like, if I want to meet somebody at a gym, it's probably not in a really small class that's offered like 1 hour a night or something like that. So I opened up, I started going to a new gym, went to Zumba, go to Pilates. They have other classes as well. Like you might be like, I'm not going to Zumba, right? Go. That's what I thought too. Yeah. I'm two left feet when it comes to dancing. But go, because you do talk before class, you talk after class. And it might not be the woman you're Zumbaing next to, if that's a word. It might be her sister. You know, like, oh, my sister went through a divorce 5 years ago. And wow, you're a really great guy. You know, I'd love to introduce you to. Well, I'll get her to the next class. So when you're looking for somebody in these settings, don't just look for the person that you might want to ask out on a date. Think about getting to know people, and maybe they know somebody. The other thing I would suggest that you do is get involved, and I know this means you have to start like relaunch your Facebook account that hasn't been online for like almost 10 years. But think about all these Facebook groups that have come online since you got off Facebook. He said he got off Facebook in like 2015. Think about all these things like I find hiking clubs, singles hiking clubs, different singles events. There's art events, things like that you can get. Like test your limits in terms of what your routine is. Like get out of that Groundhog Day. I'm guilty of it too. Get up early, go to work, go home. Then I'm like, now I'm going to go to the gym. Now I'm going to come back home. Now I'm going to go to bed. Get out of that routine a little bit, mix it up. And then I think as you start to connect, if you just use Facebook for those groups, that's all you have to do. But you start to connect with people outside of your normal routine, the world will start to open up to you.
Well, and I think that you can also, even if not on social media, like they offer those community classes. Like I know Davis County offers them. Like there's guitar lessons, there's dance lessons, there's how to buy a house 101.
Davis County, we're talking. Yes. If you're listening outside of Utah, it's one of our
county
well-populated
counties offer these community classes.
Yeah, all over
for pretty affordable prices as well. But anything that you you've been curious about for yourself, just take the class. You never know if you're gonna and be open to learning about whatever the class is, because that's what you're doing it for, and it's something that you're doing for yourself. But while you're doing something for yourself, you might just make any sort of connection while you're there, and it might just be a friend connection, but as Debbie said, it could connect you to other people.
Do you know how many people are out there in the world who are not on dating apps, who just want to meet somebody? Mm-hmm. And it's dating apps can be good for some, and they're difficult for others. But don't feel like you're out there and you're the only one who wants to meet somebody. I can think of 10 single female friends in their 50s who are looking for their forever companion right now. I can think of a number of male friends that I've had over the years that are out there looking in their 40s, late 40s and 50s for a female companion. I think it can feel lonely. And what I want to reinforce is that you are not alone. There are a ton of people we're all finding ourselves in the same boat later in life. We've raised our kids. Now where there's more freedom to date, we're thinking, what does the next 20, 30, 40 years look like for me? And am I going to be able to find that companion? I'll be honest with you. There are mornings I wake up and I don't dwell on it as much as I used to, thanks to lots of therapy, that I realize I tell myself, you're not going to meet anybody, Deb. Just carry on. Schedule out 2025 and 2026 as you see fit. Stop waiting for Mr. Right to show up on your front door with, a dozen roses. It's just not happening for you right now. But what I try to remind myself is it doesn't mean it won't happen tomorrow. Like, honestly, sometimes you turn around and the person that you knew from 10 years ago or whatever, they're divorced now, and so things happen that, will maybe connect you with somebody. But for right now, just like live in that moment of recognizing that it's okay. You obviously, this guy has his act together. I mean, has a great career, according to his email. You've got your act together. You're doing all the things. It's just finding that forever person. That person will be there. Will they be on Tinder? I don't know. Let me tell you about my Tinder experience, Caitlyn. And have you been on Tinder?
Yes.
So maybe you can help.
It's been a while since I've been on that one specifically, but yeah.
Well, my experience when I got on Tinder was that I didn't know how to really use it. And let me explain. I had been on Bumble, and Bumble, which of course is also, a popular dating app, at the time, now they've changed, was like women ask first, so you swipe on somebody, and then you could think about it for a minute, and then you'd be like, okay, I'm going to send them a message, and then you could carefully craft the message and send it to them the next day. Well, Tinder wasn't like that at all. Tinder, I felt like the lights were coming at me really quick, and it was like a lot. And I really chalked that up to my age. I just needed a slower pace on a dating app, or a pace where I felt like I was more in control of it. I know people personally who have met and fallen in love with somebody they've met on Tinder. So it works for a lot of people. It is a very popular dating app. For me, it wasn't the right dating app. So what I want to encourage him to do is think about a dating app with maybe a little bit of a different feel to it. I do think Bumble would be a great option. It's one I use. Maybe Hinge. A lot of people use Hinge. But Bumble now has kind of altered their options, and I wonder if men know this. It could just be because the men I swiped on either didn't know it or maybe they weren't interested in me. They have now implemented a new way of communicating where men can reach out to women first, where for a long time Bumble was about women making the first connection. Like, you would swipe on somebody, they would swipe on you, but then women make the first move. Now, my understanding, I haven't been on Bumble for a little bit because I came off of it earlier this year, is that men can make the first move. So take advantage of that. And obviously, just given everything you've said in this email to us, you have an awesome you'll have an awesome profile on any dating app you go on. So I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode with our dating coach,
Kristen Sokol.
And she talks about how to create a really good dating profile.
She had some really great advice on dating profiles, but also just making general connections like we were just talking about. That's where it's really shifted my perspective. And I do say, don't get obsessed with the apps. It's very easy to just be sucked into it and not look at anything else and forget that there's a world around you, because you could be standing in a shop getting a drink or whatever, looking on the dating app, swiping through, and there's someone standing right next to you. That could be a good fit, but you're not paying attention to them. I think it's important to even just look somebody in the eye and give them a little smile. I don't think a lot of people even really do that too often. And that's just, a mental connection of like, hey, I'm here, I'm trying to be open, and it can make their day just to be smiled at. Like I like having positive interactions, whether it's with men or women, but it can open something up.
As somebody who's dating a much younger generation, 29, 30-year-old, what would you say to us who are in our 40s and 50s about dating apps? And do you think Tinder I mean, you kind of understand where I was coming from on
Yes.
Tinder, or is that just me? Because I didn't ask anybody like, hey, does anybody else like, I feel a little overwhelmed on this app. Like maybe this isn't the right app for me.
It's overwhelming. And that's kind of why I was saying don't get sucked into it. Because I don't think rule them out. As you said, many people have positive experiences with them, but it's not the only option. And it's not for everybody.
I would also say if you're getting on dating apps or you're getting back in the dating game for the first time, not only go back and listen to that episode with Kristen, but also realize that, as you've probably found out and others have as well, that somebody, on a dating app might not be who they really are in person. Yeah. So make sure I always say stay on the app. Don't give out your personal cell phone number. We've given other advice on our podcast about if you want to communicate via cell phone, get yourself a free Google phone number. Just download the Google app and set that up. So if something happens and that, the relationship doesn't work out or doesn't materialize to a second date, if you have given out your personal cell phone number, that they can, light you up and send you all kinds of text messages and phone. If you get a Google phone number, at least you can delete that and get another Google phone number if need be. And also make contact with them beforehand via the, either the voice option over the app, or I would say make a phone call through the app as well. So you can get to know them by phone or by video call before you go on that first date.
And don't stay on the app for longer than 2 weeks without going on a date. That's something we both kind of decided is just get to the point and figure out if there's a connection in person. And I think that if you're just in the talking phase for a month or 2 months, that's kind of crazy. So be aware of how long you're just in the talking phase and if they're willing to meet you in person.
Do you know how many men I have accidentally fallen in love with on dating apps?
Yeah, because it's all a facade.
Yeah, just chatting with them.
Social media.
Like, this is it. I call my family up. I'm like, I met him on a dating app. Oh, have you met him in person? Nope. We've just been talking, but he's saying all the right things. And without meeting them in person, or at least having a phone call or a video call with them beforehand. Look, I had a video call with a guy who wanted to meet me. He lived in Utah. This is many years ago. And I opened up the video call, and he just showed up to the chat without a shirt on. You know what I mean? That's all. I mean, he just didn't have a shirt on. And I was like, that just seems to me to be really bold.
Yeah, that's not, yeah.
That was not exactly what I was expecting. Never met this guy before. And he just felt, I guess, comfortable talking to me for 20 minutes. I
would have hung up.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding you. Put a shirt on. That's my ick is shirtless pictures of men. If you get on a video call,
it was a video call.
Done. Dress up, wear something nice. This is the first date almost.
I don't know how am I supposed to take this call seriously. It just felt like he didn't dress for the occasion. I've never met this guy before. But here's the thing. Good, because then I didn't show up to a first date, and it would have been a drive for me. He didn't live close. We lived about an hour and a half apart. So
if it's something like that, definitely video call before. I think that's important, or at least a phone call, because that's if you're not just going, 5 minutes down the road. That's a big deal.
Well, I hope this answered your question. I hope we gave you some good tips that you can use. And again, go back and listen to some of those previous podcast episodes if you haven't, where we just lay out all kinds of good information, particularly in the one with the dating coach that we had on. She's awesome, and she gave us lots of really great advice.
We also had an earlier episode with psychologist Tom Golightly on specifically how to meet people in the wild, who offered a lot of great tips.
If anybody wants to reach out to us and leave us a voicemail or a text message, we got all kinds of ways for you to get in touch with us.
You can give us a call at 801-575-5599. That's 801-575-5599, and leave us a voicemail. Or you can send us an email at daha@ksl.com.